Hey everybody, this is Rustin with Metalholic Magazine and Access Entertainment here, talking to Dave Snake Sabo of Skid Row. How you doing, brother?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. It's an honor to get a chance to talk to you. I'm surprised in 25 years of doing this that we've never talked before, but there you go. So you got a new EP coming out, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But man, I believe you guys recently finished up a tour in Europe, including Japan and all that stuff, followed by a U.S. run with Black Star Riders, then back to Europe. Last night you kicked off a headline run with Sakara in New York. Tonight the Agora Ballroom in Cleveland. You guys have been road warriors.
Yeah, man. It's like we've been kind of doing this, for the last 25 years, just the same way we're doing it now, and we basically built our reputation from playing live, and it's basically the only thing we know how to do pretty well. Everything else that we do, we're not so great at. But as far as a band and being a band on the road, this is what we do best.
It's your day job, man. How many people get to say their day job?
Day, night, weekend, everything.
So now the new EP, Rise of the Damnation Army, it's part 2 of the 3-part United World Rebellion. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But are you guys playing, giving fans a taste of any of that EP at all? I know it doesn't come out for almost a month yet.
Yeah, no, not yet. Not yet. Towards the end of the month, we'll start. We head back over to Europe. First show is July 31st, and that's when we'll start debuting stuff off the EP.
Now, the second chapter of United World Rebellion releases on August 5th, as we just mentioned. First off, a few bands have started doing this lately, this breaking up in chapters of EPs. Down's obviously doing it. You guys are doing it. What was Skid Row's thought process behind the connected EP idea? Is it sort of adapting to the short attention span of the current music industry, or are you giving yourselves more freedom to write in concentrated bursts?
Actually, both. Both. It's very astute. You picked up on that. Yeah, it's both, really, to be honest with you. We wanted to take some of the pressure off of everything instead of sitting down and writing, 25 songs to whittle it down to 14 or whatever. We just decided to cut that stuff in half in order to have more product out quicker. We didn't want to sit there and overload people's brains more so than it needed to be. There's just so much out there. There's so much music out there. There's no filters, and it's really difficult to navigate through everything. And so, for I think for many people, the days of listening to a whole brand new album are kind of over with. We'll listen to the classics through and through, but to get through an album of new material by anybody sometimes is very difficult for a lot of people. So we just figured that we would concentrate on 5 to 7 songs at a time. It cuts down the recording time. We go from taking 2 months to do an album to basically taking 2 weeks to do an EP, and then we tour for a shorter amount of time. This way we go back and do another EP. And it makes it so much better, I think, for everybody. It keeps the cost down, so the price, the retail price is a lot cheaper than a regular record. And, it doesn't bombard people's senses. Hopefully it leaves them wanting more is the hope. And like I said, it takes a lot of pressure off us, so it makes it a lot more exciting for us just to go in and do it in these small increments.
I got to tell you, though, you're just talking about that now. It makes me nostalgic for the days when I'd sit around opening the gatefold of my Kiss Alive album and just breathe in the scent of the vinyl and everything and just sit there for hours looking at that stuff. And it's sort
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I still get off on that process, too. I mean, but, we're in a different generation now. There's gonna be a time not too very far in the future where kids will be like, what are you talking about, when it comes to that stuff. And I'm absolutely nostalgic in that sense. I love that whole process. That was a big part of the fabric of my life. Growing up was that whole experience. And, that's been, unfortunately eradicated, but that's part of, getting older and moving forward, I guess. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Especially, opening up Kiss Alive 2 and seeing that picture inside, it's just, I'll never forget that, man. I still can, in my mind's eye, I'm living that right now.
And I don't know what it was about Kiss in particular, but all of their stuff had a very particular scent to it. But anyway, getting back to the president and everything, it's funny because talking about MP3s too, the one thing that you don't get like with digital downloads is you don't get all the information that used to go with it, including who produced the new EP. Did you self-produce? We don't even know who produced the last EP.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy, man? And that's funny because, for when I was a young kid, those are the things that really got my attention because, you're putting a band together and you want to know who wrote the songs. You want to know who produced it. You want to know who managed the band. Those things are all real important. That's when I was a young kid and I saw the back of Shout at the Devil or Two Guys for Love. I saw, management, Doc McGee and Doug Taylor. I was like, man, that's the dude I want to work with right there. I mean, it made me aspire to work with those people because, they managed Motley Crue and I loved Motley Crue. And, different producers. I mean, we would never have found Michael Wagner for our first couple of albums had it been not for being able to know who he worked with on prior to working with us, and that came literally from the back of an album. So, yeah, man, I'm with you. There was a whole experience attached to all of that, which was wonderful. I loved it. You're sitting there and you're listening to the record and you're reading the lyrics and you're reading who wrote the songs and all that stuff. I always thought that was so invaluable, actually. So, yeah, but getting back to the thing is like, yeah, we produced it ourselves, and it was such a easy process, man. It was unbelievably easy. There was, a disagreement was really, really rare, and Rachel and I just seemed to be on the same page throughout the whole process. And then when that happens, man, that's just it's just such a pleasure to work in those environments.
Well, did it ever get difficult at all? Because that's the one thing about having a producer is you've got that third-party voice to give you some perspective. Did you ever struggle with that at all?
I think that with the record, I think Rachel and I, and everybody for that matter, we kind of we checked each other. The one thing that was really interesting is that being that there's 7 songs on the EP, literally everything is cut in half, and so it makes it easier to focus on those particular tracks as opposed to, a body of work that's double or more the size of it. And one of the things that we've learned after working with each other for 30 years or whatever it is, 28 years, is that if one person has just this undeniable gut feeling about something, regardless of what our particular brain might say, we're going to go with that gut feeling. We've learned to trust that more so now than probably ever before. And that just has to do a lot with respect, number one, and also putting your ego to the side. I think that as younger guys, each of us had a lot of ego that we were working with. And a lot of times, you want your idea to win because it's your idea. Right. Not necessarily because it's a better idea. It's just your idea. You want it to win. And that comes from youth and things of that nature. But as we've grown older, we've absolutely been able to put that aside and kind of look at the thing from a bit of a distance. And that I think that has served us, the band, very, very well.
Now, obviously, the 2 EPs are connected, so Rise of the Damnation Army is a continuation of Chapter 1, but is it also something of an evolution?
I would like to think so. I think so. I mean, yeah, we purposely did not write all 3 EPs at the same time and then just release them, staggered. We wanted to wait until we were done with the touring cycle for each EP to start working on the next one. This way, it kept it very much in the moment. So, things that may have been influencing us, a year ago or whatever, new things are going to take their places. And that's going to have an impact on what you write about and how you write it. And so we felt it'd be best to be very much in the moment when we're writing and constructing ETP. So in that sense, I have to say, yeah, logistically, yeah, it's definitely an evolution, if you will. Whether I always, that's up to the listener, though. It's impossible for me to be objective about any of this because I'm in the middle of it with everybody else. And,
right.
you always think that your latest work is your greatest work, and oftentimes it's not, but hopefully it is.
Yeah, you got to get that perspective that it takes some distance and it takes some time to really look back and see that sort of thing. Now, to me, listening to it through the first couple of spins, there's this sort of raw, aggressive feeling to the production of it that sort of harks back to the band's early vibe, sort of that get out there, in your face, just tear shit up with your attitude sort of feeling.
Without a doubt. And we, that was, again, a conscious effort. When we started talking about this, Rachel and I, before we start writing anything, we start talking about, basically our lives, and the lives of the band and the lives, our personal lives and things like that. And I mean, we're so close, it's ridiculous. And I mean, we talk every day on the phone as it is. And one of the things that if we're not in the same room, one of the things that we did when we sat down is we started just talking about, where we were in our lives and how much that, even though we're a lot longer in the tooth than we were when we first started the band, what's the essence of why we started the band in the first place? And it was to express ourselves in a way that nothing else would afford us to express ourselves. And music was that key, was that outlet for both of us as individuals, and then as songwriting partners. And so we basically felt that we just needed to strip away all of the bullshit of life. The things that are important to you when you're young, those things change when you're older, but the importance of it, the impact of that importance is still the same. So, when you're 17 years old, the things that have such a impact on your soul will maybe seem silly to you when you're, this age or whatever, but the impact of it is still the same as the things that have an impact on you at this stage of your life. The enormity of it is still the same. So we decided that we really needed to just take those things and utilize them in inspiring us about writing and what we want to write about. And then by the same token, you need to strip away everything, because music has always been the great escape. You get in your room as a kid and you lock the door and you just start listening to records and playing two records and figuring out these songs that you love in order to, make you a better guitar player, a better songwriter, and so on and so forth. Basically, we went back and did the same thing. Life, stripping away life is really difficult, especially when you've had, nearly 50 years of it under your belt. But we needed to really get back and go, why do we do this, man? Why do we start doing this in the first place? And why do we continue to do it? And the answer is still the same. It's the joy and the love of music, of creating music, of it being an emotional outlet. We've done so many amazing things, and our lives collectively and individually are blessed in so many ways because of music. But it's that the bare essence of it, stripping it all down to the soul of it, of what we needed to get back to, and we did. And we'll continue to drive from that particular standpoint for all our stuff forward. Because it really is, it's when you can get to that point, man, and you're just that 16-year-old kid in front of the mirror playing, pretending to be Ace Frehley or Joe Perry or Eddie Van Halen or Randy Rhoads or whomever. That's really what it's all about. And that's kind of what we go back to every night on stage, too. One of the things that I love about this band is that we are very, very aware of how fortunate we are to be able to do what we do for a living. Regardless of the size of the stage or the venue or the amount of people that show up, we're lucky sons of bitches, man, and we get to play music for a living. There's no getting around how humbling that is for all of us. All that taken into consideration when we sit down and write music, we're aware of how fortunate we are to be able to do this for a living and not have to work it in and around a day job or something else. We're basically, that's our gig, man, and it's awesome.
Well, and in what you were just talking about there a moment ago was a nice segue, because with the new EP, you do have new music to present to the fans. It still has the feel of the classic Skid Row, but also you're bringing your history of what you grew up with on there, because you've given us 5 new tracks, but you've also thrown in a couple of pretty sweet covers with Queen and Aerosmith. How did you choose those particular tracks?
It's so funny. I heard Johnny talking about this the other day, and it's so true. That's the biggest struggle with each EP is what cover tracks that we want to do, and deciding on which ones. That's the one that causes the most angst for us, if you will. It's not really angst. It's just a lot of going back and forth, and everyone weighing in, and everyone's sort of going, I don't like that so much, and it's really a crapshoot in a lot of ways until you finally hit upon those two that everyone goes, yeah. That's been the most difficult part for both EPs, is just coming up with those two tracks. So, and that's a great problem to have. But it really is. It's a very much a collective effort with everybody, just throwing out different songs that you love, new and old. I remember back in the day, in the late '60s, Hendrix did All on the Watchtower not too long after Bob Dylan released it. And I loved that. I thought that was really cool. I don't know if that would ever fly in this day and age, but it's really cool. And maybe we'll explore something like that on the next EP. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's really a collective effort, and go emails and phone calls going back and forth until everyone just goes, I love that. Okay. I love that. Okay, perfect.
Now, you said at the end of the month you're going to start throwing some of the new stuff into the set. What's the first song off the EP that's going into the set?
We Are the Damned.
Nice. That's my favorite track on the EP so far. So.
Yeah, I think that's mine as well. Which initially when we first started jamming on it wasn't. And then after the EP was done and we were able to take a step back, that's become my standout as well.
Now, before we let you get out of here, this is the 25th anniversary of the debut album this year. Making albums back then obviously was much different. Can you take us back and give us a few of your memories about recording that record as the young, wide-eyed rocker you were then?
Well, yeah, it was really, we didn't know anything, so we were very much at the mercy of those around us. And thankfully, they took really good care of us, and they treated what we were creating with great importance and great care. And so I'm really forever thankful for that. The people, our management and Michael Wagner, the label was great because they let us just do what we do. They were smart enough to know that, they signed the band for a certain reason because they loved the songs and they loved the band. So they let us be those guys and let us be that band. That was great. And Michael Wagner, who just somehow was able to round up 5 very determined kids with boundless energy, and was able to round it all up and get us to focus in a studio in the middle of the Midwest where nothing was happening, and we had no idea why we were out there, but we couldn't give a shit less because we were actually making a record, which was the goal for so long. So to be able to have the ability to actually go and make a record. We weren't thinking about sales. We weren't thinking about anything. We were just thinking about making a great record. And I remember those feelings of when we would get, the rough mixes, and we'd listen back to rough mixes and go, my God, man, this is just awesome. And we were very raw, and we're very rough around the edges. And Michael Wagner was able to capture all of that and not polish it up and not do anything detrimental to make it a Michael Wagner record or anybody else's record. He was made it a Skid Row record. So yeah, I mean, I have memories of the whole time there. When we landed, meeting all these new people who worked at the studio. The studio was a part of an old Playboy resort in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. So here you are, a bunch of guys from the East Coast who never left the East Coast, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of nowhere with a ton of strangers, and you're making your first record, and you hope it's not your last. and just the whole thing was it was magical, man. It was really just magical. And I remember at the very end of it, because it was such a summer resort community that we were in, that the day after Labor Day, it was a ghost town. And I remember Rachel and I just wandering the halls of this old Playboy resort, and it's empty. It's like The Shining. and we're just kind of reflecting on the fact of, wow, man, we're mixing our first album. This is crazy, man, and just wandering around and very much living in the moment, because we weren't thinking about anything other than just mixing that record at that particular time. And we just kind of looked at each other and just couldn't believe that our lives had brought us to this point. It was pretty amazing.
And I'm going to guess, I could be wrong, but I'm going to guess, given the knowledge and the respect and love of music that you have now after all these years of doing this, if you could go back in time, you probably would have spent more hours picking Michael Wagner's brains about the history of all the stuff that he did, the artists he worked with.
You know what? That's not true, actually. We really did pick his brain.
Oh, did you?
It's funny, man, because Rachel and I were very, very much about that. We're guys that want to know why about everything, you know? So, you know, why are you doing that? What does that do? And we were really over his shoulder, because, you know, the process of creating music is not just sitting in a room with an acoustic guitar and a few beers and writing a song, but it's also, you know, the recording of the song, the production of the song, the mixing of the song, and, you know, so all that stuff is just absolutely fascinating. I mean, we never worked with anything more than a 4-track cassette recorder, a Tascam or a Fostex, you know, so we had no clue. Or we go into a demo studio that was 8 tracks that one of his buddies owned, or maybe for someone I knew, and you know, it was all just absolutely mind-boggling. So yeah, we were inquisitive kids, man. And so, yeah, we picked Michael's brain, and, you know, funny, we still do to this day.
Well, so you weren't too caught up in your youth and yourselves back then to make the most of it.
Yeah, no, it was, we were enamored with the whole process. We weren't the kind of guys like, oh, right on, man, we're going to go in the studio and we're going to go out and party and blah, 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 blah. And that, you know, we were very much involved in every aspect of it.
So, obviously, you're releasing the new EP in a month, but are you guys doing sort of anything as the band to sort of celebrate the 25th anniversary of all of this?
You know, it's weird. I think that that's more of a... It's so heavy. It's so difficult for me personally to wrap my head around it. Like, I hate to use this word because I use it all the time, but it's just so unbelievably humbling. You know, to be doing anything for 25 years is amazing. And just the fact that we've been afforded the opportunity to do this for 25 years, touring the world, and being able to play music and release music for a living, it's just it's very difficult to put into words how much of an impact that has on our present day lives. I think that we celebrate it nightly. Johnny mentions it pretty much every night that we go on stage, and whatever he does, I kind of always just scratch my head and go, wow, man. And I look across, and, you know, I see Rachel, and I'm like, wow, dude. I look at her like, we started this thing 28 years ago. How crazy is that the fact that we're still on this stage at this moment doing this. It's pretty wild. And it's not something that we take lightly. We honor that every night.
Nice. Every night, sort of the celebration and the commemoration of the 25 plus years. So.
Yeah, and I think that's just going to continue. I think this past year our mindset has just really come down to being so just absolutely overwhelmingly appreciative of what we're able to do.
Nice. Dave Snake Sabo, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us. The new EP, Rise of the Damnation Army, United World Rebellion, Chapter 2. That is a long title, dude. We'll be out August 5th.
Yeah, it is. It is, but I appreciate you mouthing every syllable for your listeners.
Absolutely, brother. You be safe out on the road. Hopefully you'll get back out to my neck of the woods. You guys always pass up my little burg, but hopefully we'll get a chance to see you at some point.
Thanks, Rustin. I appreciate your time, man. It's been a pleasure.